welcome to episode 15 of The Things I See. I am joined by a returning guest, one of my bestest friends, and someone I'm teaching. Her name is Unity.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have her on the podcast. For those who may have seen our previous episode, Uni also has their own podcast, and it's a different focus, but it still has the main goal of helping others understand themselves deeper, understand what's happening deeper, and hers is specifically called Patterns Anonymous.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Do you
can
want
find it on
maybe,
Spotify.
yeah,
Huh?
find it on Spotify. Do you maybe want to talk about it a bit?
Sure. Patterns Anonymous is really just a place for me to kind of talk about my own patterns and talk with others about theirs and be able to kind of identify where these patterns started, how they affect day-to-day life, and what I've learned from being able to acknowledge them. It's kind of a little more of a raw podcast. It's not as like neatly put together, but I think that it is a great example of, finding contentment within the chaos, because life is not going to stop being chaotic. You're still going to be learning things. It's all about how you move through that chaos. So, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say.
Awesome. Absolutely recommend everyone go check it out. I was featured on one of the episodes, and I think it turned out absolutely fantastic. And it's because it's this constant, like, sense of, it gives a feeling of unraveling. To look at patterns and cycles and just let them out, treat them with that love is always phenomenal. So, for today's episode of The Things I See, me and Uni are going to be talking about being crazy. You know, that feeling of self doubt, not trusting intuition, not being sure what the hell is happening in your world, all the things that come with, both awakening and grounding. It's a common experience to feel like you're crazy, and learning to kind of trust yourself, even if it is a little crazy, is some of the magic.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I am personally very proud to say so many people have told me I make them feel like they're not crazy, and that must mean that I'm the craziest. Absolutely freaking nuts. But yeah, no, it's super important to kind of like give yourself the space to be a little crazy, or to be a little right, to just trust what you know is right regardless of what else is out there. And we'll dive into that a bit more, but to start and to segue into that, Uni is in my energy healing class, which is me teaching others how to use the energy healing system I created. It's called Free Flow Chakra, or Free Flow Healing System. So, Uni, I have personally seen a lot of changes. Me and Unity have done a lot of energy work here and there in the past, but this is like the info dump of everything.
yeah.
So I just want to ask, through your experience, what are like some of the things that have stood out the most that you've learned? Like, just, yeah.
Stood out the most. I don't know. Probably. I mean, I wouldn't say that there's like specific moments that are more important than others. I feel like it's just helped me realize a lot overall, just when it comes to how much I do see and how much I am able to train myself to see and understand, and how much the body reflects, like when you have those blockages and those channels and stuff, and you have like certain body pains. Like, I didn't realize how connected it was. Like, I still had a sense of knowing that it was connected to something, but as I've been learning more about your system in particular, it helps me understand what those things truly are, which helps me find a solution for myself. And then also understanding myself, I can help other people. And so learning more about like the different quadrants, like where things are and how they line up with your chakras, and what that channel means, where it leads to. Like, I don't know, it's helped me understand a lot more about what was obviously already there. I just didn't have the knowledge to know what it meant. And it's been really cool to also watch myself change from class to class to class, and like being able to, maybe I don't remember every single detail of all the things I learned, but I have a book to reference. I have my lovely friend to ask questions, and I have other people that are taking that class with me that I can also talk to. I haven't reached out to them yet, but I'm sure as we develop throughout the class, it'll be a little easier for me to connect with them personally, because along my journey, I have kept myself separate. So learning about this kind of stuff is also going to help me have a lot more compassion for myself, and a better understanding for how I can be compassionate for others. At least that's what I have to say about it so far.
That's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I wasn't expecting from this class is I was expecting most of the learning and like the healing experience to be from the classes where I'm teaching healing. But the first three classes being this massive info dump of like, here's the centers, here's the channels, here's why they flow this way. That, like, just, as I'm teaching, I'm like, oh shit. This is like doing all of the unraveling work, not the actual healing, just the awareness of it all. And, this system took me years to fully intuit and develop for the reason Unity brought up, where you don't realize how interconnected everything is until you open it up, until you expose it. And there's so many channels that I discovered only a few months before starting to teach it, because I just assumed they weren't there because they were closed off. I didn't know
Yeah.
they were there. So to be able to like fully open up myself to facilitate bringing the system to the world, and then seeing how other people also unravel and open up just through the existence of it is really more powerful than I thought it was going to be.
Oh yeah. I mean, one thing, okay, so when you asked me earlier if anything stood out, honestly, something that stands out to me is how I feel like, and I don't know all of their personal stories myself, and I know you're connected to everybody on the outside, but what I kind of noticed just from observing is that we all had our own response to learning these things. Like, it was like the unraveling started happening with each student in a different way, because now we're suddenly aware of all this stuff that we haven't been aware of, and all of this knowledge is like taking us through another spiritual journey where it's like a whole new awakening is happening because now we understand it. And that has stood out to me. Like, it's almost like you're just like, okay, here we go. Do like, and now we're all falling apart, and it's for a good thing. It's for a good cause. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it is for a good cause, and it's interesting because I had years to develop this system, and I'm trying to put people through it in 2 months. So it's been a lot of, especially with this group class, it's been a lot of checking in on everyone to be like, hey, are you doing okay? Are you losing your mind yet? Because I know I was around this point in my journey.
Oh my god. Like the first class, as you were going through all of the information in the first class, which was really just like educating us on the chakras and how the channels connect, and like what they, what kinds of things are connected to those things. You know what I'm saying. But
Mhm.
as we were learning that part, I'm sitting in class like, oh my god, I'm the culprit. I now understand all of this shit about myself, and I'm like looking at the other cameras and I'm like, oh my god. And like, we're probably all having the same realization. Like, we're all listening to this, we're realizing things about ourselves, and then also realizing things about the other people in the class. And that was a hard thing for me to be a part of in that moment, just because I was scared of being seen. And now 4 classes in, I'm not as worried about it. I'm like, you know what, I'm existing, this is fine. And part of the healer's journey is being able to have compassion for the fact that it is going to be messy. You have to be able to witness the chaos and stay calm, because how are you supposed to, I guess, calm the storm if you don't know how to face it? I don't know.
Yeah. Even the mess fits into divinity.
Yes.
So you either fight the mess or you learn to love the mess. And that's
Yeah.
the thing, is the mess isn't the chakras, it's us. But watching the unraveling of us. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really powerful to be able to see the way it affects everyone, because it wasn't at all in the way I expected. And I kind of realized what it means to be a good teacher through these classes too. Because there's teaching the subject, and then, when you're dealing with something where teaching this subject is cracking people open, and it's increasing vulnerability, and it's getting energy moving in a way it's never moved. So much of my job as a teacher is to like actually be there for the people I'm like teaching, like to
Yeah.
not just teach them, but to really like guide them through what it means to teach this stuff, through some of the challenges that come with teaching this stuff. And one of the things I've been saying lately is, if you want an easy life, don't tell the universe you want to be a healer.
I feel like that decision was already made by the time I made it here. Just saying.
Right.
But saying it out loud is only perpetuating the
Right. Exactly. As much as it provides more acceptance, it also provides more chaos and unraveling.
Exactly.
And being able to tune in to where all of my students are at individually, are some of them taking it a bit harder than others? Are some of them a bit too detached to be coming across this information? And what can I do to help them ground? And one of the key parts about this system is abandoning the idea that there's lower and upper chakras, or lower and higher. We love to put shit in a hierarchy energetically, and that's one of the biggest issues with spiritual culture, I feel. We look at the roots and the sacral and the sacrum, and we have these beautiful areas of stability, of creation, of life. But because they hold the emotions of shame and regret and guilt, the things no one wants to look at, embarrassment, people are really quick to be like, oh, those are the lower chakras. But
Oh.
it's about grounding, it's about enjoying this experience, not escaping from it. And that's one of the biggest parts of this system, is it's not just energy moves up the spine and then back down the same 7 chakras. There's the chakras in the back, and there's the chakras in the front. The ones at the bottom are just as important as the ones at the top. And, especially around third eye stuff, I want to actually ask you about that specifically, Unity. Through these classes and studying the third eye under how I've taught it, has your understanding of how the third eye works changed at all?
Yes. Honestly, I didn't really think about that until now. I would say, like, I guess the way I used to perceive it is, that I would suddenly have this vision that would go over top of my physical vision in the 3D realm. And I always thought maybe my third eye is not open. Maybe I can't see things. So I guess, yeah, the answer to your question is yes, because now when I think about how my third eye sees things, it's not necessarily like a vision over top. It's kind of blended there, or kind of like a separate internal or above type vision, instead of like, does that make sense? I'm trying to figure out how to like describe the difference, because it's kind of like, visually I can see it in my mind's eye, and like visually I can, or mentally I can understand it, I guess, but I don't know how to articulate it into words where someone listening to this would understand the difference of what I mean. um but I do feel like I see things differently. I just don't know. I don't know.
Right. No. Uh, love that explanation. And that's one of the big things in my system too, is where our physical eyes are just as much important energetic centers as the third eye. So the third eye is able to see, you know, certain things, but it has so much to do also with the physical eyes. You know, these are all senses that connect us. And
Yeah.
also in the third eye, one of the big things I see in modern spirituality is the, I call it over glorification of the third eye, but I only say that because a lot of people who say they want a more open third eye or feel like they need more third eye have either too much or just enough.
Interesting.
And it's because the third eye is also our thoughts and our ego. So normally people will be overthinking and they think they need more overthinking. They need more identity. And it's kind of just the ego excusing its own reason to grow and perpetuate itself. Of, oh, I need more I, right? It's called I. It's an I
Yeah.
and it's a singular I. And it's saying, I need more I to see. But the more I you have, the more that's blocked from what you're able to see.
Interesting. I like that.
And
That
it
makes sense.
is. Oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I just said that makes sense.
Yeah.
Continue.
It's interesting because people's traditional understanding of the third eye isn't wrong. It's just not the full picture of it, where it is this intuitive device, but it's intuitive through our sense of self. You know, energy is the same outside of us, but we see it in different ways based on how we perceive. It's our own mind communicating to us. So when people unlock the third eye, they think that, oh, I know the truth. But the truth is an understanding that the third eye isn't what's actually there. It's in yourself seeing it, not the collective self. So it's this constant thing of the ego taking this power from the all and being like, oh, I am truth. I. It's so much ego. And that's the interesting balance is then we have the crown right behind it, which is detachment. So it's this attachment and detachment that are playing back and forth. And the attached part of us so badly wants to be like, yes, I am the reason for the detachment. I know it. But the detachment says, we don't know. So it's this constant play of people think they need more I, but and sometimes they do. Sometimes people don't have enough ego, so they're not seeing things how they see them, so they're not seeing them at all. It's a beautiful blend of attachment and detachment that lets you be able to see things and also love the way you see things without understanding it as truth, which is an illusion. Just throwing that out there. I'm a huge advocate that truth is just an illusion because truth starts with I. And by goddamn, if there's an objective truth, it doesn't start with I.
Mm. True.
Yeah. So that's my little rant about the third eye. I talk about it a lot, but it's just because it's very often misrepresented. And I'm very passionate about that because a lot of people are looking for things that don't actually get them closer to what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's really cool. Honestly, like when you asked me that, I didn't really know like where you were going or like what was something that would be a response worth substance, and I wasn't really prepared. But now I see in a way, without really knowing where you were going with it, I kind of like, because it talks about, at least from what I said, it also highlights the fact that it is over glorified. Because I expected it to be this certain type of vision or certain type of reality that I would see, and then while taking your class, I realized that it's not like it's all different. It's complex. It's also very simple. Like it's a little bit of everything, and that I don't need to have some crazy vision for it to be valid. It's like I'm still seeing and experiencing energy as it is. And honestly, that makes a lot of sense. Like when you're talking about the ego, because I I feel like my overwhelming thoughts, have taken over a lot of things, and some of it is because I see too much. Some of it really is because I'm hyper fixating or analyzing things at a high rapid speed. So that would make sense. Because I feel like I do see things beyond what the average or person sitting next to me might see, but really I'm just like overwhelming myself with different kinds of truths, different kinds of outcomes, and my truth might be different than your truth, is kind of going along again with what you were saying about truth being an illusion. It's really just subjective, right? Or objective? You get what I'm
Subjective,
saying?
yeah.
Yeah, I was like, shit. But yeah.
Yeah. And that was one of the fears of doing these classes is I'm not sure if everyone views energy slightly differently. I can give people the vocabulary of what is where in the body and why, but then from there it's like everyone's going to have their different ways of reading it, of interpreting it, of understanding it, and to promote that while also being able to give everyone space to have that and also help them understand it gets to the point where it's not the thing I can teach. It's something that they have to learn. I can give them the tools, but at a certain point, it's their brain communicating to them. And it's their language. And they have to learn their own language. And that's really beautiful and cool that they have to learn their own language. That's like such a incredible journey, but it starts with understanding that this isn't a language you follow or a language you're supposed to know. This is just your language. It's something sacred purely to you. And there's beauty in that. And the ego doesn't like the beauty in it being completely contained. It wants it to be grand. Everything. I know it. But we only know what we know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
I have a saying that I really love saying. I love how many sayings I have. And it's that objective truth is a myth, and the only real truth is subjective truth. Because no matter how we try and escape it, this is especially for people who study the subconscious mind. You're gonna understand exactly what I'm saying here right away. Our brain is built to distort, delete, generalize, and accept things that fit within its belief systems. So all objective truths that we come across within our reflective reality serve our subjective truth. There is no such thing as objective truth within the human mind, because that's not how the human mind works. And that's why one of the core bases for science is peer review. Because objective truth does not exist within our minds. And when we do think it exists, it's just our ego trying to claim it knows it, to justify its subjective truth, which it doesn't believe in. It's that, yeah, it's a need for validity in subjective truth.
Truth algorithm.
Right.
The darn AI at it again.
Darn AI.
Oh. So the ego's kind of like artificial intelligence, I guess.
Yeah, it's very logic based. It's very logic. And that's the cool thing. The subconscious mind communicates how the universe communicates. It communicates through feeling, through emotion, through experience. But the conscious mind is the thing that bundles it up in a black and white box and is like, well, time to render it all out and make it make sense, even though it doesn't make sense. There's the value to arithmetic, but even that's the thing about science, is science does create objective truth, but when you are someone who is just observing science around you, then you pick out the science that benefits your truth still. So it's like
Yup.
the ultimate goal for intuition, for tuning into yourself, for just being one with self, for taming the ego really is like knowing what the ego is and validating it, understanding that it is only subjective, that it is just you up in there, and that's cool. Loving that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a weird relationship with intuition. I don't know where you're headed next in the conversation, but just like a comment kind of about that kind of stuff is that intuition has been something that I've had to really have discernment with, because sometimes it's going, like you're saying, all the time it's subjective truth. So that's where, when I have intuition about things, I try not to attach to the possibility or the outcome of what that intuition is telling me until I have the proof, until it happens. It's like I can acknowledge it and be like, okay, sure. And I might know ahead of time and that's why it's coming, but I don't really know until the outcome arrives, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And a part of that is also like it sounds like a safety mechanism of, do we want it, our conscious mind weighs that as a risk of, oh, do I take the risk of being wrong and stupid and crazy?
I mean, it's not just, okay, you're right, but also in a way it's kind of me trying to be realistic with myself in a way. It is a safety mechanism. It is something to keep myself safe, but it is also because there have been times where I've had really strong intuition about things and I really was just crazy, Or maybe I wasn't necessarily just a crazy person, but I never had confirmation. And I'm trying to regulate myself by not just gun-hoing into anything that comes my way, It's more like, okay, that could be a thing.
Yeah.
But anyways,
No, that's a great point to bring up, because one thing I've learned about intuition is that intuition is always passed through a filter. That's part of subjective truth. We are connected to the truth through our subjective lens, period.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like when you see videos online of this is a specific thing I've seen on TikTok, and I have it pretty cracked down, and it's a good example of what intuition can and cannot do. The people on TikTok who are like grabbing at the screen to mess with your energy.
Oh my god. We've talked about this before.
0.1 seconds into that. 0.1 seconds. I swipe. Like, something inherently in my body is like, do not touch my energy. I don't know you. And they always do it, like, as the video's starting, they're already doing it. So it feels invasive, but it's because I don't even get to see their face, check their energy, say if I trust them. But there's a very specific thing here. So it's not that I doubt that they're doing it for healing purpose. I'm sure they're going in with that intention, but that's the forefront intention. Then there's something called secondary gain, which is what they're looking to get out of the video. These videos will have I've seen them have 100,000 likes, like crazy like ratios. And here's where the intuition kind of develops that. So their intent, and this is one of the things about the idea of arithmetic and precision and the mind being involved in intuition and healing practice. It's in making things that consistently work despite our filter. So these people, they will have the intention to do some healing, right? Oh, I'm going to remove the viewer's cord. But if their secondary gain is, I want this video to do really well, their intuition is passing I want this to do very well through the filter of I'm healing others. So
Mm.
on the surface, they're healing others, but they're also arm deep inside of your energy. And they do it before you get the choice to consent. So here's the thing. I'm not saying they don't deserve this amount of likes. I'm not saying they're not healing, but I am saying that their intuition is funneling the secondary gain through the healing. There is the energy of selfish gain through that healing, even if it creates healing. On one hand, maybe that means they get to heal more people. But also, if I don't get to consent first, if I have to speed swipe off, and that's not the pure intent, how healing is it for me? And if it's around sales, is it healing only enough where I would want to make a sale? And when your energy is fully inside of my energy, can I trust that this person is doing it purely for the sake of healing, not to make a sale or to get attention? That's the thing. Is I feel like if they had healing intention, I wouldn't feel like it was so invasive, but then they would also want consent and trust first.
Yeah.
So it's this thing of intuition runs through a filter, and being aware of those filters is one of the most important parts of using intuition, because my intuition's been wrong. And then I take that step back and I ask, what filter was I running that through? Sometimes I ask if I'm going to be able to make it to this one event I want to go to. And it's like, yeah, if I'm willing to sacrifice as much as I am in that moment to go, it's going to tell me yes. Of course I can make it. Duh, you can make it. But if I ask instead of can I, is this what I want? It's going to show me that I have a bit of mixed feelings about it. That there might be more to the story. Or when I enter it with the lens of, I want this more, then my intuition tells me, well, that isn't going to fit into your life. That doesn't work in your future. And that goes with how I read other people too. When other people change, my intuition for them will also change. Because I'm moving through their filter of understanding what they might need. Or my filter, which might include my perception of them.
Damn.
Lil rant. So you brought up that your intuition isn't always right. And you also said you're trying to be realistic, which is objective truth. We're trying to be realistic, which is just what our subjective brain makes up to keep us in a box.
Yeah.
There is no reality. That's stupid. Just kidding. Not trying to be that intense about it. There is reality. There is shared space. We're just not observing it through the shared space. Can you?
Yeah.
Yes. Are we? No.
Yeah.
And that's actually a perfect way for us to segue into the topic of craziness, you know? And one of the superpowers of living within this pure subjective truth is that you know if you're crazy. Like, you are well aware if you're crazy. That is your standard to set for yourself. But when there's objective truth, then there's the realistic, quote unquote, realistic standard of what is deemed crazy by others under what conditions.
Yeah. There's a lot of shit I do that would be seen as crazy.
Yeah. And
but I don't think it's crazy.
right. For us, it just makes sense. We flow with it.
Yeah.
And there's not enough arithmetic to support it, but there's also not enough arithmetic to discount it.
Yeah.
It's the power of your lived experience. And I think I had a breaking point with it where for a long time I was like a little loud about what I did, but there was always like a hesitance still about doing it. But what really broke me was my first possession, where I was possessed by a parasitic entity. And for an entire week before I finally got rid of its attachment to me, I was like pale, sick, shaking, full on body tremors. My energy centers were looking so bad. And my navel, which for those of you watching kind of explains how much extra savings we have in energy, how burnt out we are. It's kind of like an energy tank in which we can save stuff. It
Yeah.
was the size of, like, what would I even describe it to? Of like a BB. Like it was just a speck.
Wow.
And when it gets down to there, that's like a hey, you're about to die kind of thing. And
Oh
I'm fully
shit.
convinced if I did not clear it at that point, I could have died. Like, this thing could have killed me. And after that, it was just too real. And for me to dispose of the necklace it was attached to, and which is how it snuck its way in, and for me to bury that and to just feel better, like infinitely better, to just be good again, it was like, okay, that's real. And I could hear this entity the whole time after I removed it. And it's just that kind of experience where I started telling people about it. I straight up
Yeah.
started walking up to people I knew. And I'd be like, yo, I literally just had this snake entity inside of me and it was draining the life force out of me because when I pulled energy out of my abdominal trauma pocket under my heart, it crawled in there at just the right time and then it was feeding off of me and killing me, yada, 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 yada.
Yeah.
And
I
at that
mean,
moment, I realized when I believe it and I'm not afraid to sound crazy, people are just like, oh my God, really? They just believe it. And it made me
yeah.
realize how people can do sales, how people can sell things. It's just believing in it. People will not think you're crazy if you sell them into your experience. And that requires believing in your experience. So the reason people think you're crazy is because you think you're crazy.
Oh shit.
And I'm sure some people still think I'm crazy and just don't tell me. Like, some of the things I've brought up definitely line up with other people's psychosis stories for sure. The difference is I'm not manic, I'm not paranoid, I'm not doing it through episodic adventures, and I'm doing it based on patterns and trends I've seen within energy. But
Yeah.
even then, that's all just bullshit justifications on me trying to say I'm not crazy when I know I'm not. I can say all the
Yeah.
trends, XYZ. Same story. I'm still nuts, just in a very accurate, precise way.
Yeah.
So yeah, at that point, just people stopped thinking I was crazy.
Yeah.
People just started really believing me because I believed me. And that was a weird shift to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've also had some pretty intense situations that have proven to me that that kind of stuff is real. But the difference is I still questioned it because I didn't hear the people around me talking about the same things. Like I've even been told that, I had some sort of psychosis situation, but like for instance, something that came up when you started talking about your story is I was when I was 19 years old, I lived with a druid, and this druid and I got into a fight. And it was over something really stupid. I don't remember like what exactly happened, but this druid, this person, I'm not going to say his name because at this point it doesn't, it's not
Yeah.
important, but we'll just call him the druid. So the druid, when we were living together, he was always like very like loud. He'd have his door open, he would play music. He's like somebody who takes up space. There was the night after we got into a fight, I came home with my best friend and another friend, and we had decided we were going to smoke in the living room. And the druid's truck was outside of the apartment, so I knew he was home. His door was cracked open and it was dead quiet. And there was this really weird energy in the apartment that I couldn't really describe. And because I'm a little more sensitive to this kind of stuff, it was really easy for me to pick it up. My two friends had no idea what was going on. And so we get stoned, and I start to have what feels like a heart attack, and I can't speak. And my best friend was like, you know what, just go lay down. It's okay, because she knows that sometimes I get a little anxious and stuff, so she thought it was just like anxiety. And so I go and I lay down in my room, and I can't turn the lights off because I'm scared, and I don't know why. And the cat is running around the room like it's being chased by something. And then my mind floods with screaming, like in my roommate's voice, in the druid's voice, screaming at me, saying a bunch of stuff to me, like over and over, different voices overlapping. And all I can think is, I'm scared and I'm sorry. And it felt like my heart was going to beat right out of my chest. Like I was having a heart attack and I couldn't speak, I couldn't breathe. And I just remember repeating to myself in my mind, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then I passed out at some point. The next day, me and my best friend climbed out the window and I worked at the college. Someone approached me that I'd never seen them before. Never ever. Approached me while I was working. I don't know if it was the next day or if it was like within a week or so, but that person approached me and was like, "Hey, this might sound really weird, and I don't know you, but I need to help you. You are cursed and something is hunting you." And I was like, okay, that sounds about right. Like I've been feeling these ways, and that's crazy. Like I've been feeling like something's following me. Like I just get this eerie sense that I'm being hunted. I feel sick. He was like, yeah, you were cursed with this specific curse, and if it's not lifted, you are going to die, and you need to do something. And so he educated me about it, and then he was like, here's some things you can do to deal with the situation, but you need to confront the druid. You need to tell him that you know that that's what he did, and you need to ask him to lift it because this is dangerous. This is serious stuff. And so I confronted my roommate. He was shocked that I even knew. And he told me that he had that night meditated and put all of his hatred into a physical being and then attached it to me. And it was going to hunt me until I died. And like for years afterwards, I struggled with getting stoned, because that happened. And I think that he lifted it. He gave me this amulet, he told me that he did some things, and I definitely struggled with some pretty weird stuff for years afterwards. And I don't know if it still exists, but it is something that helped me realize that that stuff is real. And it was scary. It was in my face, and I couldn't deny it any longer. Like, that shit is intense. I don't know.
Oh my god. Holy shit. So, that would specifically, I believe the term for that is an egregor.
Yeah.
Yeah. But oh my god, that's so messy. Jesus fucking Christ.
And it was over something stupid. Like, we just had like a small disagreement. I didn't respond the way that he wanted me to. He was not willing to, meet me on something. It was like something stupid, like dishes or, some sort of like small thing. That it was just like, why would you do that? Like, that's such a dramatic response to a small disagreement. Like that's dangerous shit. And his life got crazy after that. And that helped me believe kind of in the three times fold. Like, you got to be careful what you're intending upon another person because that can come back to you.
Yeah,
Like,
especially with druidic magic, because I'm sure he created the entity as an extension of himself. But if any of the energy, that's the thing for him to create something that's fatal, it would need so much energy, and that's not a disagreement kind of energy. So I definitely feel like he would have included druidic entities in that kind of situation. And I'm not sure if you've ever talked to a druidic entity or felt what they're like to work with, but they are very about clean and exact exchange. if you offer them something and they don't get it, like if the cost for creating that egregor was like your life or something like that, which to druidic gods, life is just something that comes up and goes. It's
Yeah.
whatever to just take a life. That's just a simple sacrifice. Like, yeah, that all goes back to him. That cost to do all of that goes entirely back on him.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of how druidic gods work in a way. They thrive off of debt. So they'll give you what you want and you pay off a certain debt for it. You give off it's an equal exchange. It's not trying to cheat you. But once you have the debt, usually you need to sign another contract based around the debt you asked for. It's like money. If you were to ask for money, which is definitely something they could just get you, just like that,
Oh yeah.
then you have all this money and you run out of it because you're not used to it. It's not your comfort zone. And then you need more money because you just blew through all of that. And then you're paying off a debt which you weren't able to pay off because you spent all the money and now you have more money. And they try and get this cycle going where you keep relying on them, and the second you stop relying on them, you're in the dirt again because you're not doing it on your own. So you keep going back to them and they keep like reaping reward until like you have nothing else to give and you owe them a lot.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's intense. I'm really glad I don't work with that kind of energy.
It's powerful energy and it's energy of nature. It is equal exchange, and life is a trivial thing to nature. We die. Things are dying constantly. The grass is dying, it's growing and it's dying and it's growing. It's just the endless cycle of life. So, you know, the druidic gods, they're good. It's just also old fashioned.
Yeah.
A
That
little
makes sense.
archaic and chaotic, but good. Just not good not good in the way that they are good in the way that there's a benefit to working with them that I understand and respect. It's just very archaic nature energy.
Yeah. Makes sense. Oh.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of cursed items, do you remember the jar I told you about that my sister and I put intention into?
Yes.
So I asked her about it because like my first thought was to smash it. I was like, okay, our old roommate, when we did intentions with this jar, he had to have put some weird intentions into it. And I think I was right because I called my sister and, we're talking about other stuff, but this comes up in the conversation. And I'm like, Caitlin, you remember the jar that we made, the heart one with all the intentions? She was like, yeah. And BC was there and Thomas was there. And I was like, yeah, okay, I think BC put some weird intention in that. What do we do? I was like, my first thought was to smash it. And she was like, dude, I had the same thought just before you said that. So I wrapped that thing in black cloth, just to kind of, I put it in a bag so that when I smash it, the glass doesn't freaking go everywhere. And then I wrapped it in a black cloth and tied it shut. And then I took a sledgehammer to that bitch and buried it. And sorry for cussing on your on your
Go for it.
podcast.
Let her rip.
But I feel a lot better in the house, and I've had some realizations, like when you were talking about house cleaning, where you're like cleaning the energy by objects. I've realized that there's still a lot of stuff from that roommate that is in the house, and that person specifically had very chaotic energy. That person, like, we ended up kicking them out, like literally driving them to the bus stop and saying leave because it was that bad.
Wow.
And he was the kind of person that would climb out the window. He was very negative. He had like weird stuff going on in his mind, and I almost wonder if some of that energy has continued to linger in the house, because I've also noticed that anyone who lives in that room that he was in follows a similar pattern when it comes to spiraling. I know that might sound crazy, but we're talking about crazy stuff right now.
Right. And if it's not making people crazy, it's attracting the ones that follow that pattern because the room is their energy. It's their comfort zone. So they're going to be attracted to that space.
I used to live in
Crazy.
that room.
Love being
uh,
fucking nuts.
yeah, same. You've helped me become more comfortable with it, or at least like just accept it for what it is because I'm sorry, this has been not to you obviously, sorry to the listeners, but this is my reality. This is the experience that I'm having where it's just, even if it sounds crazy to the average person, it's so real, it's like undeniable. Just like with the druid, like there was no way I could say that that wasn't real. That was so terrifying and in my face and not planned. I wasn't like, yeah, this
Right.
guy's out to get me. Like
Right.
it's not
Exactly,
crazy.
absolutely that. It's those experiences that make it that make you really not give a fuck about what might be realistic or considered realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and it's crazy because I've had some pretty loud experiences. Like when I met with Metatron, I still need to make a whole video on that because I'm so tired of retelling that story so many times because it's such a long story for so many good details. But it's like the weather changed, like lightning in 360 degrees around me. I'm seeing this angel. I like this visceral experience, life changing at such an incredible location. And I was so scared to talk about it for so long.
Yeah.
But it's also, I grew up in religion. Saying I talked to an angel makes it sound like I'm Joseph Smith version 2. Can't have that. Fuck no. But that's also not actually the intention. And it comes in the fear of what if my intentions are not understood? And just the feeling of having my intentions be misunderstood, that belief, means I am going to attract people that misunderstand my intentions.
Shit.
But it doesn't mean that everyone is misunderstanding it. It just means I'm looking for the people that are to confirm my belief that people are, because I believe I am.
The algorithm is algorithming.
Yeah. So, the superpower of being crazy is believing in yourself either way and, you know, letting people agree or disagree. But standing on business that they can disagree and that's still your truth. Yeah, it's been cool to see your journey through that, Uni. I hope you know how
Really?
awesome it's been. Well, yeah, I mean, mine was a little cut and dry, and it's because I was living as the character that had to be cut and dry about it. I was living as this healer, fortune teller person for a while, rather than myself, rather than very human. But you're coming from a very human aspect of this, of, you know, learning to, instead of just do it regardless, to also not give a fuck. Or to care, but not that much. Just learning that both can be true. People can be
Yeah.
skeptical, and you can also be right. Because it's all subjective.
Yeah. It's the balance. Me just being unity.
Yeah. The perfect in between of everything all at once. Look at that. And yeah, stepping into your authentic self requires you to not care if you come off as crazy.
Yeah. I'm a mess and that's okay. I'm kind of learning to love it.
Right. We're all messes. It's just learning to love it and understand it. And when you have that awareness of understanding it, you're able to just accept it, you know? And
Yeah.
especially when, as we said before, with intuition, when our intuition doesn't agree with reality, it's easy to think, oh, I wasn't realistic enough, or oh, the objective truth got me. But really, it's just a story of us versus us, not us and the world, you know? It's what was my intuition guiding me to that led me to that conclusion and not the one that happened. And your intuition will tell you. But people tend to not ask their intuition after that because now they're afraid their intuition's wrong. But the intuition's going to keep on intuitioning.
Yeah. Oh.
And, you know, one of the things I was saying about the filter of intuition is one reason why I'm so happy to teach my healing system, because it provides the literacy where with literacy you're able to take it from I'm trusting nothingness to I'm trusting this thing that I know to be true. It's creating subjective truth out of nothing. And you know, in my class I teach, there's over at least 40 chakra systems that we know of today, and countless more have been lost to history. All of them are different. Not a single one is the same. There's similarities. Energy, like medicine workers in all cultures know energy moves up the spine. That's like the one trend. But the centers, the channels, the way it moves, it's different. But the energy isn't different. It's just our way of viewing it. And loving that, loving the difference is something I'm very loud about in my class of, you know, other things are also true. It's just we're working with this truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like this version. I think it's dope.
Thank you. I think it's
You're welcome.
pretty fucking cool also.
Yeah.
Pretty sick.
Pretty sick, dude.
Sick,
Yeah.
nasty. Okay. So the journey of craziness, for anyone watching, it is not a journey you're on alone, and that fear starts from when you're a child because of how we treat people who are quote unquote crazy. But no matter where you're at, you're not crazy, you're experiencing. Fall into the experience, listen to the experience, and learn from that experience. It all has a divine purpose. Psychosis or psychic or whatever it might be, just fall into it, trust it, learn and love it.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! Alrighty, that's kind of how I wanted to wrap up the crazy thing. You have any wrap up notes, Uni?
Honestly, no, I don't have anything to add. I feel like this has been a really good conversation.
Woo! I agree. For everyone listening, definitely check out Uni's podcast. I am an absolute fan of it. The idea of it and the way it's growing, the way it's transforming, and the way her intent with it is becoming more clear is really powerful, because it's not more clear in the more structured way. It's more clear and the delivering the message in a more raw and authentic way. So super love it. Link in the description. And until next week, always remember, we are light, you are love, and I am clarity. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed day.